I am live. It's Gordon Causey, as it always is on my channel. Today is Wednesday, the 23rd of April, and it is right now 5:04 Eastern Time, 5:04 p.m. I'm doing a video much earlier than I normally do because this is something it's on my heart. I need to get this out there. Uh, the title to this video, the thumbnail, they are not clickbait. I am going to outline a very real possibility about what could happen on Monday, April 28th, and in the days that follow. And the question I'm at, it's not a question. Mark Carney could lose the election and remain Prime Minister of Canada. And some might reasonably ask, how is that possible? How could he lose and remain the Prime Minister of Canada? And the reason someone would ask that question is because they don't have a firm grasp on Canada's Westminster system of parliamentary democracy. I'll paint the situation for you. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party elect, we'll say, 165 members. Not a majority. Not a majority. You need 172 seats to have a majority. So Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, they elect 160, 165, falling short of a majority, winning the popular vote, having the most seats in the House of Commons. But in this situation, let's say the Liberals managed to win 130. And the remaining 40, 50 seats are divided between the Bloc Québécois and the NDP. Now, most in this type of situation would expect to see Pierre Poilievre sworn in as Prime Minister, for Mark Carney, who is the sitting Prime Minister, to resign, and then for Pierre Poilievre to be sworn in by the Governor General. However, and this is where you need to understand the Westminster system of parliamentary democracy. The party that is able to govern in the House of Commons is the party that is able to maintain, achieve confidence. They need the confidence of the House. What could happen is that Mark Carney, as Prime Minister, could call for a vote of confidence in his government. You're saying, wait a minute, he's not in power anymore. Yes, he is. He's still the Prime Minister until the new Prime Minister has been sworn in. It's similar somewhat to the manner in which they have the election in the United States in November, but then Inauguration Day doesn't come until the new year. And so they refer to Joe Biden as the president, and Donald Trump was president-elect. And before that, Biden was president-elect, and Trump was president. So Carney would still be prime minister, and Pierre Poilievre would be the prime minister-elect in a fashion. However, Carney could convene Parliament and put forward a motion of confidence and seek to win enough votes in the House of Commons to establish that he has the confidence of the House and he is remaining in power. I can hear some heads going, wait a minute, that could never happen. That would never happen. I'm going to read Lisa's Life is watching live. I'm going to read her comment, and then I'll tell you about a historical situation where this was contemplated. All right. Hi, Gordon. 7.3 million voters early. Fake polls say Liberal winning. I agree with you. Told you, my client told me that no matter who votes for who, Liberals are being put back into power. And what I am outlining is a situation where that could happen. very plausible. In the 1979 federal election between Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Liberals and at the time they were called the Progressive Conservative Party, being led by Joe Clark. The Clark-led Conservatives won more seats than the Liberals. I'm looking at it on Wikipedia. The Liberals won. I gotta make sure. Oh, I've got the wrong election. 1979. So 1979, Joe Clark's Conservatives won 136 seats, 22 more than Trudeau's Liberals, who won 114. However, that isn't the end of the story. The NDP had 26, and the Social Credit Party, which was a kind of a forerunner to the Bloc Québécois, they had 6 seats. So the NDP, Social Credit, and Liberal combined had more seats in the House of Commons than Joe Clark's Progressive Conservatives. However, in terms of popular vote, the Liberals had gotten just over 40% of the popular vote, and the Conservatives had won 35.89. So the Liberals had more votes for them, but their vote was less efficient. They romped in Quebec back then. They owned the island of Montreal and they owned most of Quebec. The battleground ridings in Ontario were won in close races by the Conservatives. So the Conservatives got less votes but won more seats. And at that time, back in 1979, after that election took place, there was talk that Pierre Elliott Trudeau could try to cling to power by reconvening the House of Commons, putting forth a motion of no confidence, or rather, not a motion of confidence, seeking the confidence of the House. And if the Social Credit and NDP had voted with him, then he could have remained as Prime Minister. However, Trudeau, in this instance, I'll give Pierre Elliott Trudeau his due. He said it's time. He had been Prime Minister since 1968, 11 or so years. It's time for me to go. And he left. However, it was speculated at the time that Trudeau could have tried to remain in power. It would have been legal. It would have been legal under our Westminster system of parliamentary democracy. Am I predicting that this is going to happen in this election, that the Liberals will lose? My prediction is that the Conservatives are going to win the most seats in the House of Commons, but they are going to fall short of a majority. And I am further predicting that Mark Carney will then convene the House of Commons, put forth a motion of confidence, seeking the support of the other parties, the Bloc Québécois, the NDP. It'll depend very much how things shake out. There might be a Green Party member. This is my prediction. I'm going to ask you to like, share, subscribe, and to bookmark this video. And if you can download it, you have my permission, just because. Yes, I have a conspiratorial bent. I do know that in the halls of power, people do conspire. And I want to give further weight to what I'm saying, because there was an election in Canada back in 2006. So not going all the way back to 1979 when I was 13 years of age. But I remember this. I have a memory like an elephant, and I'm a political junkie for a long time. But before I talk about the 2006 election, let me see what Lisa's writing. Client's brother is friends with one of the Trudeau cabinet ministers who told her the above. And what the above is that no matter who votes for who, liberals are being put back into power. And this is one way it could play out. I do not believe, and I've said this many times on my station, they can't rig the vote. This isn't mail-in ballots. There have been 7.3 million ballots already cast in this election. We're going to have somewhere around a total of 18 million ballots being cast in and around that number. 18, maybe punching up in and around 19. And so that means that more than a third of the votes that are going to be cast have already been cast. They're already in the ballot boxes. They are not being tampered with. They are Elections Canada does their job. I know how this works. The ballots will be opened up when the polls close. They will be counted fairly, correctly. And then what happens is we find out how many seats each party has. I want to go back to 2006. That was an election between primarily Stephen Harper's led Conservatives and Stéphane Dion's led Liberals. Those were the two main contenders. There was also Bloc, NDP, Green, all the other parties, and what happened in that elections is that the Conservatives won a minority, 133 seats. The Liberals came in at 124. And then the Bloc Québécois had 51 and the NDP had 29. And what happened? Parliament was convened. Stephen Harper was already the sitting prime minister, so he remains in his office. No need to swear him in. He's already been sworn in, and he put forth an economic statement that the Liberals, NDP bloc, all signaled that they were going to vote it down, which would mean a vote of no confidence. And in the case of a vote of no confidence, normally what happens is the Parliament or the House of Commons, the parliamentary session, everything is dissolved and we go to an election. However, it was equally signaled at that time that Stéphane Dion was going to go to the Governor General, who at that time was Michaëlle Jean, and he was going to ask her if he could form the government because he had an agreement, he had a signed piece of paper from the NDP and the Bloc saying that they would support his government. And this happened all very quickly after the election. And Stephen Harper, for the first time that I believe this is the first time it happened, he prorogued Parliament. His economic statement had come out, and he was not going to engage in any crazy spending. We were on the cusp of what became known as the Great Recession or the financial crisis when subprime mortgage lending in the United States threatened to collapse the world economy. And Stephen Harper was planning with his economic statement a steady as she goes course. And the Liberals, NDP, and Bloc all signaled they were going to vote it down, which would trigger, and it was an automatic confidence vote because this is called a money bill. This was an economic statement, so there were dollars attached to it. That's an automatic confidence vote. But Stéphane Dion said he was going to go to the Governor General and ask her to form the next government. So what Stephen Harper did was he prorogued Parliament, kind of in similar fashion to what Trudeau did in January, prorogued Parliament, and then he spoke to the opposition parties and said, okay, what do you want? What do you want? What do I have to do? And they said, spend like you've never spent before. And Harper put Canada, after having under his leadership, the balance had been booked, or the balance had been booked, the balance had been budget, or the budget had been balanced under his leadership. Now we went tens of billions of dollars into debt I personally wish that he'd stuck to his guns, but then he was between a rock and a hard place because Michael Jean likely, it was widely speculated, she likely would have allowed Stéphane Dion to test and to see whether he could garner the confidence of the House. This, I think, is going to happen. And I'm going to ask you to hang on for a little bit more because I have two suggestions. I do not have a crystal ball. I'm not Nostradamus. I can see things playing out a couple different ways. But I want to take you back to 1985. Ontario had an election where I live. And in this election, 19, I was able to vote in it. And in that election, the Frank Miller led Conservative Party won 52 seats. The Liberals had 48, just four less. And the NDP had 25. So Frank Miller won. He was the Premier of Ontario. He had taken over from Bill Davis, had been sworn in a fashion similar to Mark Carney, and called an election, and he won, but barely. 52 seats against 48 for Liberals, 25 for the NDP. When he tabled his first budget, it was defeated. That is a confidence vote because anything with money, economic statement, budgets, anything with spending, they're money bills. That's a vote of confidence. So immediately it looked like Ontario was going to go to an election again. And we've been having elections really short intervals. And David Peterson, who was the leader of the Liberal Party, went to the Lieutenant Governor General and said, I have an agreement with Bob Rae's NDP party. Bob Rae used to be in the NDP, and he's a former Premier of Ontario. I have an agreement with Bob Rae's NDP. They will support me. And the Governor General said, okay, go at it. And for the next 2 years, David Peterson was Premier of Ontario with Bob Rae's NDP supporting him. Kind of a coalition. Kind of. It was not a formal coalition. It was similar to the deal that Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau had. They call it a supply confidence agreement. When there is a vote of confidence that could topple the government, we will vote with the government to keep you in power. So this is not without precedent, although it all at the same time it would be different from those previous two examples. This would be unprecedented for Mark Carney if he is to lose this election, as I think is going to happen. But I don't think the Conservatives are going to get enough seats for a majority. I think they're going to fall short of the 172 needed. Then Mark Carney, quote unquote, legally, it's like the way he hides his financial disclosure now. Legally, he doesn't have to. Legally, Mark Carney has said he has 60 days from the time he was sworn in as Prime Minister to hand over disclose his financial assets to the Parliamentary Ethics Commissioner. I have 60 days before I have to do it. And then the ethics commissioner doesn't disclose that to Canadians for a further 60 days. So 122 days, or 120 days rather, sorry. Uh Now, is that legal? Yes. Should not Canadians be made aware of what assets Mark Carney has in his portfolio before the election? Well, of course we should, but legally he doesn't have to. Should Mark Carney try to hang on to being Canada's Prime Minister, even if he doesn't win the most seats in the House of Commons? Should he? No, he shouldn't, but he can legally. And you can check into this. I know I'm not claiming that I know every minute detail, but I know the Westminster system of parliamentary democracy as it operates in Canada. And I'm here to tell you this is more than just a real possibility. So, what do we do? Well, number one, my prediction gets thrown out the window if the Conservatives can win 172 or more seats. So please, if you're watching this and you're a conservative minded Canadian who doesn't want this WEF Chinese owned puppet, Mark Carney, as the leader of this country, because we're in deep caca if Mark Carney is elected, vote. And if you've already voted, get someone else to vote. And if you haven't voted on Monday, when you go to vote, take someone with you. I need you to help me out. We've all got a friend. We've all got a neighbor. We've all know an individual who doesn't closely follow the political scene. I need you to help me out. People like to be helpful. I need it. I need your help. Can you come down to the polling station with me? And can you give and name your conservative candidate? In my riding, it's Philip Lawrence. Because if Mark Carney remains in the prime minister's office, he is already referring to the current climate, the current situation we are in. This is a crisis, he says. We are not in a crisis. He wants it to be a crisis. Because once you declare a crisis, and if you can get everyone to believe you are in a crisis, then you can do some scary things. As we all just saw over the last 5 years, starting in 2020, what the government can do when there is a crisis. Carney is on record as saying that he will employ the full emergency powers of the prime minister to get us through this crisis. This crisis that we are not in. We are not in a crisis. It will be a crisis. Mark Carney is he's signaled that we are in a crisis. And he has signaled that he will use emergency powers to confront this crisis. Well, the crisis is coming if he gets elected. He is owned by the WEF. You will own nothing and be happy. He is owned by China. Let me read what Lisa is writing. No, Lisa, we are not doomed. We are not doomed. I don't, please, we are not doomed. Okay. Even if this plays out exactly as I've laid out, Mark Carney's Liberals lose the election. However, the Conservatives do not get a majority of the seats in the House of Commons. Mark Carney then convenes the House of Commons, puts forth a motion of confidence, demonstrating that he has the confidence of the House of Commons and remains in the Prime Minister's office. That is what I am predicting. And then, if that happens, if this plays out, you've been warned ahead of time. Freedom Convoy people. We need that on steroids. Conservatives need to protest like you've never, if this happens, and I'm predicting it will, if it happens, protest like your life depends on it. If you cherish freedom, liberty, freedom of speech, Carney is threatening to use emergency powers. We saw what the use of emergency powers meant in Ottawa. It meant that hardworking Canadians, just simple blue collar, just simple guys earning a paycheck, had their bank accounts frozen. The government directed the banks to freeze them out of their bank accounts so that they couldn't pay their rent or their mortgage or their car payment or anything. That is the kind of thing you would expect in Soviet era Russia or in communist China, not in a free and democratic society. And that was at a time, that was 2021. That was at a time, no, 2022. No, 2021. Gosh, my memory. 2022. It was 2022. I'm getting old. 58. Going to be 59 in a few months. 2022. That was at a time when Mark Carney was Justin Trudeau's senior economic advisor when they reached into hardworking Canadians' bank accounts and froze them because it was an emergency. It's a crisis. And that's the rhetoric that Carney is using right now. Um, Lisa has shared this out. Thank you. If anyone knows how to download, I'm afraid this will be taken down, genuinely. And I'll tell you right now, Bob's your uncle. I don't care if you monetize, do whatever you want. Just keep the content as it is. I'm going to wrap up pretty soon. I just want to read what's being written. Wick News, who I know from Twitter, X, is here. Hey, Wick News. A lot of money manipulation, employment income, and whatnot being used as leverage. We are in, and Kassam, hey, Kassam is saying it's complete BS. I don't swear on my channel. I try to avoid it as much as possible, although the you know, odd one will slip out. I do my best. But it is not BS. The Westminster system of parliamentary democracy holds that the governing party is the party that is able to hold and maintain the confidence of the House of Commons. Just look up confidence, House of Commons, Canada, Westminster, parliamentary democracy. You don't have to have gone to university and taken poli-sci. It helps, but you don't have to. All Mark Carney has to do is establish that he has the confidence of the House of Commons. That's all he has to do. Even if he doesn't have the most seats in the legislature, if he can get enough votes from the opposition benches, from the Bloc Québécois, from the NDP, maybe from the Green Party, if they have a seat or two, maybe there will be an independent. It happens every now and again. And so there are two things to do. Number one, vote, vote, vote. If you voted already, get someone out to the polls. If you haven't voted yet, when you go to the polls on Monday, take someone with you, get them to vote, encourage them to vote conservative, know the name of the candidate in your riding, because unless you live in the riding of Carleton, you're not going to see the name Pierre Poilievre on the ballot. It's going to be a Conservative Party of Canada candidate. So know the name. And two, if this does play out the way I'm predicting, then get ready, because we need to make we need to make Ottawa look like a block party. Hang on, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, liberty. You think these are going to stick around under a Mark Carney government at a time when he's already told us we're in a crisis? Forget it. Wick News is naming I'm assuming, the Conservative candidate for Brantford, which is southwestern Ontario, out at Tillsonburg, Delhi, Brantford. Very good. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Hey, best case scenario, Poilievre's Conservatives win 180, 90, 200 seats, and Bob's your uncle, we're good to go. But things are tight. I live in a rural area, and I know I'm very confident saying that my riding will be won by the Conservative candidate, Philip Lawrence. But the GTA, I don't know how many ridings there are there, but it's got to be 70, 80. 70, 80 of the ridings of Ontario's 122 are in and around Toronto, Hamilton, Ottawa, Kitchener-Waterloo, the major centers. And that is where the liberal strength lies. It lies in the urban centers. I was talking to someone earlier today from Acton, which is in Halton, but it's the rural part of Halton. And it'll likely to be conservative. But then you go to the city of Mississauga, million people, and Mississauga alone probably has 11, 12 ridings. And politics is a dirty, dirty, dirty game. Anyway, God bless. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for sharing Lisa's life. This can happen, and I'm predicting it will. The only thing that would forestall it is a conservative majority. And I don't think a conservative majority is in the cards. I don't think the polls are accurate, but I don't think they're that far off. I don't think they're that far off. I don't think they're suppressing the fact that I don't think that the conservatives are heading toward a majority or a super majority. I like what Cryptomeria writes. We got this. And thank you for watching. Again, like, share, subscribe. If you can download this video, do it just in case it goes down. I've had videos taken down before, merely for questioning where the SARS-CoV-2 virus came from. I read about Dr. Luc Montagnier, a Nobel Prize winner from France, virologist, and I read his opinion. I listened to an interview with him en français, talking about the origin of the virus, and his expertise led him to believe that it was made in a lab. But you weren't allowed to say that, even a Nobel Prize winner. Unbelievable what we went through. That was a test. And we got a passing grade, but just barely. Too many people followed the stickers on the floor. That's something of my metaphor. Too many people, well, they want me to follow the stickers on the floor. That's what I'll do. It's time to not follow the stickers on the floor. God bless. I'll keep this, gone over 30 minutes. And we'll talk to you soon. I may do another live tonight.